All right, everybody. Has everyone introduced themselves to the person next to them? Kind of, sort of. I could hear a lot of chat. So hi, everyone. We're about to start. My name is Maiti. I'm going to be emceeing you, guiding us through this evening's campaign launch on behalf of SALAM. So before we start, can I just get where have people come in from? What boroughs? Maybe not New York? Just shout out at me. Jersey, woohoo! I love that at the front. Yes. What else? New Delhi. Oh my God. Okay, you win. You definitely win. Anyone else? Any no New Yorkers here? Brooklyn. Did I hear Queens? Yep. Okay, that's good. Good. Okay. All right. So before we get started, I know we're in a building. And we're sat on these chairs and it feels a bit like school, but this is a campaign launch and we're here to organize and strategize. So I want everybody to start with some chanting. And I'm going to ask you guys to lead because I guess you guys have been doing this for at least the last year and probably much, much longer. So would someone like to get us started? We don't need a mic for chanting. Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. Thank you. Okay, now I feel like there's a bit of energy. Oh yeah, we're going to do chanting all evening, so we can bring that back. Okay, so we're here today, inspired and answering the call to action by Palestinians who are facing the Israeli death machine with unparalleled resistance. This campaign is what we hope will be a small but important part of a global resistance that has emerged and strengthened over the past year. Tata Bye-Bye is here to expose and dismantle the role of Tata, which is profiting from the genocide of Palestinians. We're so pleased and honored that you're all here with us in this space to mark the beginning of this campaign. And for the first hour, you're going to hear a little bit from us about why we started this campaign, what we hope the campaign will achieve. And then we really want to hear from you, what kinds of questions you have, how we're going to strategize collectively. Whilst we launch this campaign with our coalition partners and endorsers, we want to really bring you into this. We want you to feel ownership over the campaign and take it out into the streets, the schools, the universities, workplaces, homes, wherever you're all at. As we discuss, we ask you to join us in principle, struggle, and critique. So ask us questions, ask each other questions, do it with grace, with openness and respect for each other. Our purpose here is for justice and for Palestinian liberation, and we place Palestine at the center of our work. So let's stay focused on our shared goals. I'm now going to pass this on to our comrade at Palestinian Youth Movement, PYM, who is a part of the coalition. And I probably don't need to do any introduction to PYM, but has been such an important part of organizing here in New York, nationally and internationally. So Raphael is going to really ground us in the current moment, talk about what we're facing, and ground us before we talk about the campaign in more detail. So let's welcome Raphael to the stage.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Hi. Thank you so much for that introduction and for that grounding. I'm going to be reading off my phone. I hope that's okay. Let me know if at any point you can't hear me in the back. My name is Raphael. I'm with the Palestinian Youth Movement. We are a transnational grassroots organization of young Palestinians and Arabs struggling for the liberation of Palestine. want to deeply thank SALAM for spearheading this campaign and for the space to speak on its importance. As we all know, we are more than a year into the ongoing genocidal campaign waged against the people of Gaza by the Zionist entity. This is a campaign that has continued to escalate without mercy, threatening regional war as their violence extends to Lebanon and Iran. And for many months now, the death toll has fallen utterly short of the reality. Long blurred by the wanton murder and destruction that has made it near impossible to keep up with the numbers. Northern Gaza is a bastion for some 400,000 Palestinians who, because they are duty-bound to their land and will accept nothing less than victory or martyrdom, have remained steadfast and refused to evacuate to so-called safe areas as designated by the Zionists. And Zionist aggression now rises exponentially there as well. Netanyahu has recently announced the beginning of the so-called General's Plan, laying out his explicit goal of forcibly removing all Palestinians who remain and mapping out a complete siege, which is well underway as we speak. But we know well that removal is not their true intent. Their true intent is slaughter. It is mass disabling, it is cruelty. Earlier this week, I'm sure folks saw this, we were confronted by horrific images of displaced Palestinians in Al-Aqsa hospital burning alive, some still tethered to their IVs. And just earlier today, Palestinians taking refuge in the Abu Hussein school were shelled indiscriminately, martyring some 22 children. There's some 22 civilians who were primarily women and children. Yet in the midst of these seemingly endless tragedies, the Palestinian people remain unbreaking and have remained so all these months, taking the enemy consistently by surprise, whether in Gaza or in Lebanon. And we ourselves take on a particular front here in the heart of empire. We recently launched our newest initiative, the Mask Off Maersk campaign. Who's heard of it? Woo! And through it, we are seeking to isolate Maersk, a shipping and logistics company and a deadly knot on the supply chain, which transports weapons and weapons components to the Zionist entity. The primary demand of our movement right now, as it stands, is an arms embargo. Within a day, like with a phone call, the US government could end the genocide, and instead they choose to do the exact opposite, to continue providing the weapons that are used to murder journalists, doctors, children, and entire families in Gaza. So today's newly announced campaign targets yet another multinational corporation, which likewise profits from siege and slaughter. Both Maersk and Tata are over a century old. This is their legacy. This is the legacy that they've chosen. And so we know what matters most to these corporations is their bottom line. Capital moves in conjunction with imperialist violence, whether in service of the Zionist project in Palestine or in service of India's Hindutva project in Kashmir. And so we must make imperialist violence materially disadvantageous. They can no longer profit off of it. And so that's our call. And so the Maersk campaign and campaigns like SALAM's constitute the people taking matters into their own hands. An arms embargo is the demand of the majority, and if the government won't abide by this demand, then we will make sure it happens by hell or high water. As a movement, we must do everything we can to disrupt the supply of death and destruction that murders our people daily in Gaza and elsewhere. So thank you all so much. I'm excited to see what happens with this campaign. I'm excited to work together, and I hope that we can build and continue to strengthen the movement both here and abroad. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raphael, for really bringing our attention to Palestinian resistance in the face of the Zionist regime, and also what they have endured over this year, and the real call for us to disrupt these channels. So now for the next half an hour or so, we're going to be talking to you about the Tata campaign. I'm going to invite my SALAM comrades to come and speak to you all about it. And at the end, we'll have some time for questions as well. So firstly, I'm going to introduce Kulsum.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. Okay, so before we get started, we figured it'd be a good place to start to introduce ourselves as SALAM. So based here in New York City, we're a multi-tendency South Asian political organization that draws on the traditions of revolutionary Marxism as we strive to co-articulate a pan-South Asian socialist and anti-caste movement in politics that engages with the ongoing struggles in the region through our work with progressive organizations here in New York City and globally, and in South Asia, of course. So as an organization, we focus on three main areas. One is local organizing, so providing capacity to local South Asian organizing efforts, and as well as other efforts that support the movement, both here and globally. The second is cadrifying. So this is providing political education internally and externally, skill building through offering workshops and having reading circles to really build our capacity. And the third is international solidarity. So building our solidarity through growing our networks, which is a testament to a lot of the folks here today, because we really can't do this work alone. And over the past year, we've been here in resistance in the streets for Palestine with many of you and many others who are not here today. So with that, we're really excited to announce the launch of our campaign, Tata Bye Bye. So SALAM is targeting Tata, which is an Indian mega corporation that produces weapons, banking services, cloud infrastructure to the Zionist entity. The main goal of this campaign is to show the importance of the relationship between India and Israel in allowing for the genocidal entity to continue operating. And Tata is true testament to this power of Indian capitalism. Ultimately, this campaign hopes to bring people into the movement so that way we can work together to destroy the Zionist entity. For decades, India has pretended to stand in solidarity with Palestine while also arming Israel's brutal occupation. The Indian government's covert military ties with the Zionist regime goes back past the 1960s, and under Modi has expedited its ties both in the economic development, military relations, as well as business in the Zionist entity. And a central part of this bloody alliance is the Tata Group, a giant of Indian capitalism profiting off of the occupation from Kashmir to Palestine. As we mentioned earlier, we cannot do this work alone, and so we are so grateful to the folks who are already joining us in coalition and endorsing this campaign, a lot of the organizations that you can see here. And you can also, if you haven't yet endorsed the campaign, there is a link right here to endorse Tata Bye Bye yourself. And we are drawing from examples that are already being done with a lot of our coalition partners, from Mask Off Maersk to the campaign targeting City led by Palauda. We know that we are following a tradition of resistance, and we hope to build with all of you. So next, I would like to pass it to Aman to talk a little bit more about this campaign.
Thank you, Kulsum. Well, so I'm going to go over a little bit about what is Tata, why we are targeting Tata, and like why here, because Tata is a big Indian company, right? So, wait, where's the clicker? Oh, it's there, it's fine. Yeah, actually, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so what is Tata? Tata is a huge conglomerate in India. They have more than like 100 businesses across multiple sectors. They have a market cap of more than $365 billion. They're known as like the salt to software conglomerate because it's literally impossible to go about your life in India without running into something that's like run by Tata. So it's huge. Like, you know, the top 5 private companies in India, out of them, like 3 of them are Tata owned. So it's a very big deal. They are also very present internationally, and we'll get into that a little bit. The other thing is that this huge empire that Tata has built, it's been built on the backs of exploiting labor and marginalized communities. And it has a huge history of doing that, like all the way going back, it's like more than 150 years old. So whether it's like its supply chains from factories to its plantations, it's strewn with worker strikes, it's strewn with exploiting labor, it's strewn with like, stealing indigenous people's land and building factories on them and then calling in the Indian military to shoot them. So there has been a huge history of them like calling in the Indian forces to kill people from the land that they have stolen. So they are very complicit, and their profits come from this blood. The third thing is that they have a great image. So they are known as like really big philanthropists. More than like 60% of their like equity is like donated to trusts, are managed by trusts. They also have a great like nationalist image. They are known as this company that built India, that industrialized India, because they were funding Gandhi during the anti-colonial movement. They were funding Indian National Congress. And they also built one of the first like industrializing plants in the country. So they have this image that's really great. Like if you notice, 1 second, so a lot of Indian liberals were crying about the fact that it's the ex-chairman of Tata, Ratan Tata, just recently passed away a couple of weeks ago, and they were like defending him for like having built this country against people like who were calling him out for having funded right-wing forces in the country. Now I'm going to get into why Tata. So they are heavily complicit. They supply vehicles that patrol Palestinian land. They supply, they build weapons components. They have partnerships with Lockheed Martin and Boeing that also then are used to build like fighter jets. And they supply weapons components that go directly to Israel. They also provide the IT infrastructure and service, the cloud computing of Project Nimbus, the state surveillance system run by the Zionist entity that surveil Palestinian lives and land. They also provide banking services across the sectors of both private and public for Israel. And most of the digitization of banking in Israel is like done by Tata. And that is through one of its companies, and that is one of its most valuable companies, which is Tata Consultancy Services, TCS. The thing with TCS is that it's also very huge in the US. More than 50% of its revenue comes from the United States. They have, and Tata overall has more than 50,000 workers that are based here. So the idea is that they are very complicit, they are very present and everywhere, and that's why we need to target them here. Why Tata Bye-Bye and why now? So India is looking to Israel as a middleman to build closer ties to the US. Like this is since the fall of the what they call the license Raj in India, since the introduction of neoliberal reforms in the late 80s and early 90s, and since they have not been able to get like Soviet arms anymore. So India has been trying to tilt towards US very explicitly, and it's looking at Israel as one of the conduits to do that. So in that way, the US has also served as a hosting ground for both the Zionist lobby and the Hindu right-wing lobby to build ties together. The Hindu right-wing lobby, which is becoming very powerful in the US, is sort of uses the Zionist lobby as a template to build its own machinery, and they sometimes have the same consultants to do that. And the other thing is, it's because there has been growing protests in the West, particularly the US and the UK, where they've been targeting, like over the past year, we have been targeting like universities and all sorts of institutions that are complicit in genocide and apartheid, like in a way that's much more ramped up than before. Like the supply chains, they're trying to move their supply chains elsewhere. And so what we are here to do is to introduce this campaign, which will hopefully like give some sense of like that we can target those supply chains even from here. And so for that, I will pass it on to my comrades, Sami and Manahil.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to start us off with a chant because y'all seem a little dead. From Kashmir to Palestine. Louder. From Kashmir to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. From Kashmir to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. Amazing. Do we have a clicker? You can click? Okay, amazing. Okay, I'm just going to start off talking a little bit about Tata in New York City and you know, the sort of background of Tata, right? So, you know, Tata is deeply invested in our neighborhoods, even if it doesn't seem so, right? Israel, the Zionist entity, really learned its lesson from apartheid South Africa, right? Apartheid South Africa was heavily invested in things and industries like coal mines, right? It was very obvious pointing at apartheid South Africa and saying, well, this is obviously an oppressive industry. But apartheid Israel has learned to do that vis-a-vis IT services and cloud computing, et cetera, et cetera. But we know that as a cynical project. We know that as a sham to cover up its crimes. They invisibilize their violence by investing in cloud computing and IT and other vacuous bullshit. We see that they're still just as invested in apartheid and violence. We see that they are just as present with their violence in our neighborhoods and in our streets, and there is no greater example of that than the New York City Marathon.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Sami. I'm going to talk a bit about the marathon and why it is so important to elucidate like the ways in which it is being powered by an evil genocidal company. The marathon is everywhere. It takes over our streets. It monopolizes our resources, right? It literally everywhere. All 5 boroughs, even Staten Island. It starts in Staten Island, goes all the way up from South Brooklyn through Bay Ridge, through Sunset Park, Williamsburg, into Long Island City, crossing then into Harlem, little loop into the Bronx, and then loops back down to end in Central Park. So for this huge day, there's tens of thousands of people, right? 51,000 total finishers last year in the marathon, and it generates over $100 million for the New York Roadrunners. TCS has been a technology consulting partner for New York Roadrunners since 2010. And it's the title sponsor, right? They get to like whitewash their name through affiliation with this huge event that takes over the entire city. Anyone who's thinking about running the marathon knows it's TCS NYC Marathon, right? And they don't know that behind that is an evil genocidal company. It's the subsidiary of which literally is sending weapons to continue the genocide, right? Can we go to the next slide, please? So what are we doing about it, right? What are we doing to target the New York City Marathon, to go after Tata through that? Well, we're calling on the New York City Marathon organizers to drop TCS as its sponsor and cut all ties to the Zionist regime. We just today actually sent ton of everyone at TCS an email elucidating this demand, right? Making it clear to them that we're asking for this, that we're demanding this, that we're launching a campaign to come after them if they don't respond to us. We gave them a deadline of October 25th to reply. And yeah, it's all part of a broader strategy about which I'm gonna pass to back to my comrade Sami.
Yeah, I mean, and we sent this email out to be clear to New York roadrunners, right? And we are asking New York roadrunners simply to follow international law. We are asking New York roadrunners to simply follow BDS, the example of numerous companies around the world that have cut ties with a genocidal Zionist entity. And we're also gonna, when we finish talking, our comrade Mon is gonna share a toolkit for concrete ways in which we plan to go out for the marathon. But we have identified the New York City Marathon as our target. We have identified this marathon as a way that this company whitewashes its crimes. So then we get into our broader goal, right? If Tata is using the New York City Marathon to whitewash its crimes, we're also asking Tata to disclose and divest, right? Tata, this behemoth that Comrade Aman talked about, is invested across sectors like cars, like agriculture, IT, fertilizer, and more to disclose their holdings, follow international law, and divest from the Zionist entity. Next slide, please. And this really gets to the core of our campaign and the core of our goal. We want to strategically weaken ties between India and Israel. Destroying the ties between India and Israel is a multi-front demand as the Hindutva Indian state strengthens its hold on oppressing Kashmir, oppressing labor, expropriating indigenous land. We know it can't do that without the corporate state. We know it can't do that without investment from Tata. And Tata cannot make its profits without the genocidal Zionist entity, without selling components to Israel, without offering its IT services. So we know that this is part and parcel of destabilizing the genocidal violence that we see in Gaza and the genocide that continues in Kashmir.
A company like TCS hides behind innovation and future leadership and like strategic partnership, right? But we know what's really going on. We know that they were one of the first Indian companies to set up in Israel. We know that TCS is just providing the, whitewashing is the word Sami used, and I'd say that's the right word. And you know what? We're going after TCS via the marathon now, and we're not gonna stop going after the marathon, by the way. Like, we're in this for the long haul. But we have other targets too. We chose Tata because it literally is everywhere. On Roosevelt Island, the Tata Innovation Center is a collaboration between TCS and Cornell. What they call the place where they develop leaders and technologies of tomorrow, we know that's where they're developing the technology they provide to Israel to continue its genocide. And there's other targets as well. And we go after every single one of these, one after the other, simultaneously in order to build pressure against Tata, to highlight the collaboration between India and Israel, and to make it so that their bottom line is hurt in a way that they disclose and divest. Thank you.
And thank you. With that, we'll pass to Comrade Mon to give us some concrete items.
Next slide. Okay, so who is really excited to get involved? Woo! Yeah. All of that information was to sort of like give you the context for what we're going to be doing, all of the ways you can plug in. And so over the next month, so the marathon is on November 3rd, and like Manal Hill said, can you hear me now? Like Manahil said, the marathon is on November 3rd, and we're not going to stop. But until then, we have a lot of different ways to get involved. So next week, the week of October 23rd, there's an art build. The week after, we have runner outreach, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And right after that, we have the New York City Marathon. If you're a runner, there's going to be ways to get involved in the marathon and as a runner. If you're not running the marathon, there's also going to be plenty of ways to participate as a spectator and as a participant in the campaign. Next slide. So if you are a marathon runner, I'm going to ask if you're going to do all of these, and I want to hear a lot of yeses. So if you're a runner, are you going to email New York road runners to drop TCS using our template? Yes. Cool. Are you going to join our Signal chat to plug into runner-specific actions? Are you going to recruit your fellow marathon runners to join our runner Signal chat? Great, love to hear it. And are you going to pick up a drop TCS bib so that you can wear it during the marathon? So we're going to have pickup locations at one of our pickup sites, which you'll be able to find out through the Signal chat. And then also we'll have a couple of days to like plug in, do outreach, and pick up the bib. And then the day of the marathon, are you going to wear your drop TCS bib? Yes. Next slide. Okay, for everyone who is not a runner, who plans to spectate or just like participate and plug into the campaign in a different way, I'm gonna do the same thing. Are you going to email New York Roadrunners to drop TCS using our template? Are you going to join the Signal chat to plug in to spectator-specific actions? Yes. Are you going to make a plan to attend the marathon as a spectator and bring your friends? Yes. Are you going to also pick up a drop TCS bib at one of our pickup sites? Yes. So similarly, we'll have a couple of days where you can pick those up. And then on the day of the marathon, November 3rd, are you going to wear black and wear a drop TCS bib? And are you going to stay tuned for actions along the route? Incredible. Next slide. So we're especially excited to grow our campaign with a variety of different groups. We want everyone to be involved, but we're especially looking to runners, like I said, and then also South Asian working class folks, and then pro-Palestine and anti-Zionist communities, New York City residents. Like we said, Tata is everywhere, so it's a campaign and it's a context that I think impacts everyone. If you belong to any of these groups, if you're a runner, if you want to spectate, if you're South Asian, if you're working class, if you're pro-Palestinian, we want you to get involved. And we need support with events, so we're going to have breakouts in a little bit that Maithee's going to introduce, but we do need support with events, media, volunteer coordination, and actions. And now, with that, I'm going to pass to Maithee.
Okay, that was great. It seems like, everyone's going to be involved in some way. Thank you, Man, for getting us started. So that's the part of our presentation, aware that it was a lot of information that we kind of just threw at you. But we want to spend a little bit of time. How much time do we have for Q&A, do you think? I'm asking her. 20 minutes? Okay. We have about 20 minutes for Q&A. We really want to hear your questions and thoughts. Just to say, I want to get as many questions, so don't take it personally, but if you're taking too long, I will politely interrupt you. Keep it kind of focused, like we're going to go into breakout sessions after, so we're going to really do like a deep dive into the different areas of the campaign. But we really want to hear from you, like any clarifying questions, anything that like didn't make sense in the presentation, thoughts, comments, how it links to some of the other work that you're working on. So yeah, over to you. And we have a mic. Maybe someone can. Any questions? Okay. And then I've got you after, yeah.
Me right now? Okay, great. I just wanted to know real quick, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And then maybe we can have the people who presented on the stage, because I'm not going to answer all the questions. I just realized. So the people who presented, do you guys want to come up? Aman, Kulsum, I mean,
Oh, in the
I've just like
meantime.
told them that they're going to do this now. I didn't warn them before, but you know. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's awesome. So in the meantime, I'll also just make my comment, which is, first of all, like, amazing presentation. You have given me so much just fodder that I've been wondering about for so long. And also, like, yeah, like, the situation in India and with Tata right now, it reminds me a lot of, like, my name is Christina, I represent Armor, but it reminds me a lot of Turkey in the same situation of, like, pandering to Palestinians while at the same time literally shipping the Zionist entity oil from Azerbaijan, which is another genocide. So anyway, I just wanted to know, I'm not really aware of New York Roadrunners. Is this like a public company or like a private company? Like, who chooses where they get their funding from, basically? And can we attack Eric Adams out of this somehow?
Oh yeah, always.
It's a nonprofit. Yeah, that's part of why we took the approach of sending them a strongly worded letter first, because sometimes, like, we don't know how they're gonna respond, but and we're ready to escalate, but we wanted to give them the, so yeah, their investment sources, funding sources are publicly disclosed because it's a nonprofit. Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that?
I think. Oh, sorry.
I can, yeah, their funding sources include, but are not limited to, the city and like private donors, philanthropists. And then also they get a lot of money from the marathon itself because people pay, charities and people pay up to $100 per person to run. And obviously they're funded by TCS, their title sponsor, and a few other banks.
Okay. Yeah. Question over here. Yeah.
Hello. I'm curious to hear more about how SALAM has been building with folks in South Asia around this campaign. Thank you.
Also, sorry to interrupt. Say your name when you're asking a question. I'd love to hear your name.
Zainab.
Hello. Yeah. So we have been working with a few groups in India that are looking at India's complicity with the Zionist regime. Tata has not been one of their primary targets because there are, I would say, like, bigger fish to fry there. Like, in addition to Tata, there are a lot of other Indian companies that are very complicit. And the biggest one of them is Adani, which owns majority stake in the largest port in the region, Haifa. And also sends drones directly into the IDF. And so they have mostly been focused around looking at how we can cancel licenses, arms licenses for these companies so that they stop the exports. So we have been in conversation with them. We send them literature, but and so far it's an ongoing process.
I just wanted to add, like, I was like obsessed with Adani for a while. Like, I really wanted to go after them because it just like makes me so angry. But some of the, like, we had a whole portfolio of companies, right, that we did research into that are like some of the, and the reason it made sense to go after Tata is because of the ties here in New York, in the US, right? So it was kind of that nexus, whereas we see different priorities within the subcontinent, within India itself. But part of this campaign is like having those conversations, trying to build on the work that folks in the subcontinent and here are doing, like talking about Adani here, right? Talking about, yeah.
Can I add? I just want to add one thing also, that part of the reason is also that we want to be successful in our divestment campaign, and we do think that a company like Tata, which is so invested in their public image as this like benefactor, this philanthropist, this good capitalist, quote unquote, has some chance of success in like pressuring them through these very public tactics. So we also think that Tata makes potentially a good target for that reason. But we're going to continue to be in conversation, obviously, with folks in India, as well as Tata is present in Bangladesh and Nepal and Sri Lanka. So continue to be in conversation with groups there about how we can uplift and collaborate on the campaigns that they're fighting on the ground against, like also against Tata, right? As it continues to steal land and conduct massacres of people there.
Yeah. Okay. We have. Well, I'll give you. Yeah. I have a question here.
And then, oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Chawanta or Chivi. Quick question. So talking about like being effective, and I was thinking about like Elbit systems in Cambridge. Would direct actions against like other Tata officers within the city be acceptable actions within this campaign?
Yeah, so again, our longer term vision is to damage India-Israel ties, right? And that includes weapons ties. When we were selecting targets, I think, Adani, Wipro, Mahindra, we had a whole portfolio of companies that we wanted to select. But to reiterate, SALAM is a New York City-based organization. We work with New York City communities and New York City organizations, right? And so we chose Tata in a limited scope because we believe this target is achievable, we believe this target is local, and we believe this target is effective, right? In the long term, when we brought in this campaign, and like I said, our vision of corporations being a really, really fundamental part of genocide and violence, right? That will include Adani, that will include Wipro, that will include like the Adani collaboration with Elbit, and for sure, we would love to provide capacity along those lines as well. Does that answer your question? Would direct action? In like Boston, you think? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we literally, like, in the teams of this campaign, one of the teams is direct action. So definitely.
Join our chat to find out more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then there was somebody at the back after.
Hello, Mohibba Ahmed. Thank you so much for the presentation again. There's just some clarifying questions that I wanted to ask. One was that is the campaign like really focused on just the divestment angle and the relationship between Tata and how it is connected to Israel, or are we also going to focus on other angles through which we can attack them? For example, like a little bit research on how Tata has also been involved in occupation in Kashmir, and like you talked about Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, like what are like the local threats to the communities that Tata poses? Is it more than just like, occupying people, just like impacting the indigenous lands, the climate impact that comes with it? What are the relationships that it has with like other big corporations? Like we were, I think, talking about Citibank and all of that. And then secondly, I wanted to ask, like, the elections are near now. And so have you thought about how that would impact the strategy of the campaign moving forward? Like, how do we see it, like, if Trump comes to administration versus like, Kamala coming to the administration? And like, are there some thoughts on like the actions following the marathon action? That would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. So first question around like kind of how we're targeting. Somebody want to answer again?
That's a really good question because, I mean, Tata has its hands everywhere, like in all sorts of oppression and exploitation. So we are building that research out. For the moment, we have just been focused towards the marathon and like building it out more in New York City, like as it's connected directly with the Zionist entity. But along the way, we have found its traces like around the world. Like Tata manufactures armored vehicles that it exports to Morocco to occupy Sahrawi people. And so it's everywhere. And we are building that out, but our focus has been different for now.
Yeah, and that's one of the hard things about tackling like a company like Tata, because its hands and is everywhere. And I think comrades have said like this really is like the beginning of the campaign. We're in it, and I think all of you are in. Like this is like a lifelong project. We're going to be building this over years. I think somebody asked like what kind of transnational solidarities are we going to build? And absolutely we see like how we have to connect these global struggles, both here in the US with Palestine and then across the world, actually, much beyond South Asia. So yeah. And then does somebody want to speak? Somebody who is more American adjacent than me on the elections?
I think that candidly, I don't think the strategy changes regardless of the administration. Like I think that our goal is very clear. Like we want an end to this Zionist regime. We will do whatever it takes to make that happen. So yeah, I think the short answer is that I don't think the administration really will impact it. Obviously, like tactfully, like tactically, thank you. Tactically, I think we'll have to determine our strategies based off of our material conditions, as we've been doing, right? And so right now, the condition is that there is a marathon coming. There is a community that's ready to be mobilized. There's all of us in this room right now. And so we'll keep like assessing that environment and what opportunities come about and moving with that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like on the question of like when in crafting sort of the Maersk campaign, for example, like I think there are maybe some parallel logics here. Is that like we also recognize, like for example, speaking to Elbit, that is their entire business model is war, right? So like they don't have an incentive to necessarily like divest from war. Like that's what they rely on, and so I think that's part of our logic with Maersk, for example. And I think similarly with Tata is like the investment in Israel represents likely like a minute portion of their portfolio, and so the incentive is greater, especially if they are banking on popular image and that's what they really need to sort of continue living. And so I don't expect, similarly, I don't think it would, I don't think it would change much, because I think, the logic would be the same.
I think this is a very well articulated campaign, and it's going to be successful. I'm Vasiki, by the way. I wonder if one very obvious way to build connections with South Asian communities is to take what you learned from the New York City Marathon and take it to the Mumbai Marathon, because I think Tata, not even TCS, Tata has been funding it for longer than New York City. And the second thing, I'm glad that you mentioned the image of Tata, because one way they bank on that in India is with investment in fundamental research and oncology. And that's why people love it, because they've interacted with it directly. So I was wondering if we can capitalize on that and get some of the student energy from the encampments who have STEM degrees to come out and support this campaign and say that they're not going to take jobs at TCS or work at these institutions because they know that they're complicit with the military.
Can we just take one more question, and then I think we're going to wrap up. There was, well, actually, two more questions, and then we'll answer those three. And then we are going to continue the conversation in breakout sessions. So, and then here. And then we'll, take the three.
Hi, I'm Aditi, and I have a related question for long-term strategy, maybe, to even maybe think about collaborating or mobilizing workers at Tata companies, because that works with like these the dock workers who are enforcing that. That's maybe a very powerful strategy. And then one comment I had was that I mean, even if you look at Tata's initial history, it's completely money made off of the opium wars, right? Like it made so much profit out of that, and a lot of the reason why it switched to philanthropy historically is to kind of find home for this kind of blood money, right? So then I don't know, just to kind of bring that in some way. Yeah.
Who was the
Hi, I'm Fidat with Palauda. I'm glad to hear more about the Tata campaign. I actually knew nothing about this before, especially the TCS. I never knew what that stood for. But kind of a thought is there a reason why there isn't like a call to boycott the New York City Marathon instead of like people coming to the marathon like as runners with the bibs? Like just a thought. And also there's a lot of like I'm not into running, but there's a bunch of running clubs here in New York. I know there's like New York City running clubs. There's in Bay Ridge, there's a Muslim running club. So have you guys thought about like connecting with these running clubs in person and like kind of talking to them about the campaign? Thank you.
Okay, so we have 3 questions. Who would like to answer? Would you like to answer the first one? Yeah.
Just very quickly, thank you for mentioning the Mumbai Marathon, because I think Tata is the largest sponsor of marathons in the world. The London Marathon, the Amsterdam Marathon, the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, they're all TCS. The Boston one, they're an IT partner where they run the app. So like they support like different marathons in different ways, but they're like the London Marathon, go to the website, it's TCS London Marathon. So that's a really good point, because we can make connections here like across the world for building on like what we're doing here. Just wanted to name that.
Yeah, I think also to the question on worker solidarity, I think the research did surface, right? Like there has been resistance internally across countries. In Germany, I think we saw in the UK, in India, there are so many accounts, public accounts, you can read about it, of folks protesting different sorts of violations and harm that Tata is perpetuating. And so there's definitely a very ripe possibility of mobilizing and organizing workers. And so I think we're looking forward to building towards something like that.
Yeah, and yeah, just to add, we've definitely got workers and organizing with them, and also like other companies, nonprofits that also work with Tata at the moment, like because the marathon is 2 weeks away now, our focus is that, but like we'll be definitely building that out. And then do one of you want to speak about like running groups and boycott?
Yeah, we have reached out to several running groups, and we have made those connections, and we're interested in like getting them involved with like sort of like taking action at the marathon. And I think that also gets to the question around why not boycott the marathon, right? We are interested in working with the runners to identify this as a target and then to take action at the marathon. I think it's much easier to ask someone to sit out and for that not to like make a big splash, for that not to like make the airwaves, et cetera, than for someone who has been prepping for this marathon, right, to run it with sort of like that action in mind, right? And we can go into detail about the actions, but I think strategically it makes much more sense for us to collaborate with running groups, collaborate with marathon runners to take action at the marathon.
Yeah, I'll just add that we developed our asks of runners in conversation with runners, right? So I think some of them were like, oh my God, if I'd known, I wouldn't run the marathon. But I think our target isn't the runners, right? And it's not, we want to use the spectacle of this big event that's gonna take over our streets and resources and turn it against them, right? So if we take those people out, then we don't get to like intervene in that way. So that's some of the strategic thought behind that. Yeah.
I'll also just add that TCS doesn't get any money from the marathon, right? So all of the money that people are paying, if they were to boycott, none of that money actually goes to TCS. TCS is a funder, it's a sponsor. And so that's also why we didn't think it would be the best choice to boycott, and rather we can create like a much more visible spectacle at the marathon with runners, with spectators, et cetera.
Yeah, and also on that point, and there's actually, Zionists are big runners. I don't know why. They really like running. Like there's a whole I don't know if folks are familiar. It's called like Run for Their Lives, but basically, I know like in the Upper West Side, they've been running every week on Sundays, and so like I think right now they're also trying to establish like a marathon contingent where they're gonna have their own bids. Mm. Mm. So yeah, so they're gonna like have a visible presence. So I think it's like also an opportunity to be like, it's like a key site of intervention. Like if we can show up there, then like they're gonna know that there are pro-Palestine runners, you know.
Okay, so it's so great to have so many questions, and we want to basically now break out into four groups, the different areas of our campaign. So we're going to break up into four groups. One is like looking at media and narrative, and Mon and Shri are going to be leading that group. Research, that's going to be Aman and me. Political education and building solidarities is going to be Minahal and Kulsum. Here you are. It's like, where's everyone? And then direct action is Sami and Mansi. So we're going to ask you to like self-select. Like we're not going to like where you're most interested in. So whether you want to be thinking about how we shape them, like the media and the narrative strategy for this campaign, and give us ideas in how we should be doing that. Whether you're interested in some of the research questions, like what should we be looking more into detail, what like research really like stood out to you. Whether you're thinking about how we build solidarities here in New York, nationally and internationally, and what political education looks like, and then direct action, how we build pressure, what are the tactics that we should be using. So there's four groups. Before we do that, like I just want to like reiterate, you know, take a stretch, and like everyone's going to get up. In fact, everybody, if you are able, would you like to get up? I think we should do some chants. So we're going to test something out with you. We've got some Tata related chants, which we haven't like put out into public yet. So bear with us if these sound a little clumsy. We're gonna start with some, and we want you to like respond and, you know, give us ideas as well, some good ones. Okay. Shall I start? Do you want to start one? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna because you probably haven't heard these words, I'm gonna say the line and then just repeat. Run for justice, run for rights.
For justice, run for rights.
TCS, we're here to fight.
TCS, we're here to fight.
Run for justice, run for rights.
Run for justice, run for rights.
TCS, we're here to fight.
TCS, we're here to fight.
Drop TCS, cut the ties.
Drop TCS, cut the ties.
NYRR, open your eyes.
NYRR, open your eyes.
Drop TCS, cut the ties.
Drop TCS, cut the ties.
NYRR, open your eyes.
NYRR, open your eyes.
Yeah, in India they say, I mean, the equivalent of like shame is like in the northern parts, like hi. So it goes with like Tata, hi.
Tata, hi.
Tata, bye.
Tata, bye.
Tata, hi.
Tata, hi.
Tata, bye.
Tata, bye.
Oh, that was good. Okay. Everyone should be joining our chat and giving us ideas on what other slogans that we should be coming up with. We want you to use your imagination. So if everybody who's leading a session, if you can come to the front. So Mon and Shri, if you want to come, we're going to stay in this room, and this is going to, you guys are going to be media and narrative. So if anybody who wants to join media and narrative, maybe just like go to that corner over there at the back. Research is going to be me and Aman. So if you're interested in staying, or if you're interested in joining research, then join us. Maybe just like gather here. building solidarity, so that's like how we connect with groups here in New York, nationally and internationally. That's going to be with Minahal and Kulsum. So if you can just gather on this side over here, and Minahal and Kulsum, if you gather everybody, and then you'll be taking them up. And then direct action, so how we build pressure, tactics, that's going to be Mansi and Sami, and they're going to be here.
Before you go, please scan the QR code and join our
Okay, and we really hope you'll stay with us for the conversation, but if you do have to go, scan the QR codes on the pillars to join our chats. Okay. So research, no one's interested.
Would I be useful?
Yeah.
Particular spot?